I thank you, Maria, for joining me on the Chronically Well podcast, where we have real conversations with community that needs to be heard. Maria, could you please give the world a summary of who you are?
So thank you for having me. I'm Maria. I am a mother of two. I have been living with diabetes since I was 7 years old, diagnosed in 1996. So this upcoming spring will make, 29 years. For work, my title is a family support provider. I would say I'm an advocate for, many people. I think, parenting is a huge job. And so I definitely help parents. I'm a parent educator. And just, for a long time, diabetes, I guess I let it define me until, I finally didn't. And so now I feel like, I've been kind of conquering all and taking over the world little by little. I'm definitely passionate about helping as well, and just continuing to grow, and everything that I've learned as well, giving back. So that's kind of me right now. I have two sons. I think that, they definitely are the reason. They're just the reason why I keep going every single day. So,
Maria, are you trying to give your episode a title already? the reason?
There's a lot of reasons. And I think that, I'm so grateful for this opportunity, because I myself have thought about having a podcast of my own. And I think the healing journey is a huge, huge thing. And so through all of my experiences and, the things that I've gone through and stuff, I definitely, there is a reason. There's a reason why I'm here, for sure. And I can't wait to just keep growing and giving back.
And I can't wait equally for you to keep growing and keep giving back, because that shows and shares how much you truly care for others as much as you do yourself. And, I wholeheartedly appreciate everyone who has that sense of empathy with community beyond just their own.
Yeah.
You mentioned it being a healing journey, and part of the healing journey is accepting, grieving, or mourning, whichever, learning, and then using what you've gained to help others.
I definitely, like I said, am a helper, always have been. When I turned 30 or so is when I had to learn how to really put myself first, because I was always being the one putting, just helping everybody and being that person for everyone else. And I wasn't that person for me. So even though I always accepted diabetes, it definitely wasn't number one, and I wasn't number one. So now that I actually have learned boundaries and, yes, helping and giving back, but also knowing that how draining this is, right? Living with diabetes is extremely daunting, right? Draining, can cause so much burnout and things, but you could also do anything with it. And that's what I'm learning now. And that's what I'm living now. I say that I'm thriving with diabetes at this point in my life. I can say that at one point I was just surviving. And so yeah, there's definitely, and, for that, becoming a single mother was a huge part of why I had to really, really get on my healing journey and know that even though I was always a good mother, once I became a single mother, it was like, okay, next level. Like, girl, you don't got nobody to lead. Like, you have to be, you have to do it. You have to figure it out. And so I've come a very, very long way with that. Very grateful to be here every day. Very grateful that, you know, as of right now, I don't have any diabetes related complications. I'm not going to say as of right now, even though I just said that I don't plan on it, right? I'm working hard every day to just even get better and better.
Right. Today, you do not have any diabetes related complications.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for you, Will, because you came about, you know, it was Diabetes Awareness Month in November, and I shared one of your posts that popped up in my feed, and from there you ended up requesting me and automatically put me into the group. And it happened to be right like 2 days before I was getting surgery. So you guys in the group have helped me with that healing after surgery and just giving me some tips and stuff that, you know, our doctors, our professional endocrinologists don't always give us. And so I really am so grateful that I came across you, that you added me, that I'm here today with you on this podcast, that you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
Let me chime in a bit. This sounds crazy. I tell everyone this, like, I really don't know how I found you. Like, everyone I follow and that follow me on Instagram or type 1 diabetics or caregivers for people that live with type 1 diabetes. And my feed has been like that for the past maybe like 4 or 5 years. And that's the way the algorithm comes to me now. And anytime I see a person, specifically a person of color living with any insulin-dependent diabetes, I friend them. Because I know, like you mentioned previously, there were times when I just didn't know much about diabetes other than I had it. There were times when diabetes was a great burden on me. And I know that with my medical teams over the years, I have been my greatest advocate because I love science, I love research, all of those things. And I've studied with the best of them. I've been asked to join on different endocrine teams over the years. But I always tell them, like, I have a different journey in life to reach the public, to reach the masses. And just by you sharing a little glimpse into your background, into your story, I can equally say that you have that same type of like personality where you want to be able to, because there were times when really the education was lacked. And specifically people of color, we know when we come together and we join together, that's when we make things happen.
Yeah.
That's when we party together, we cry together, we gain and gather together. So that's why I invited you into the community, into the space.
Appreciate that.
I don't know if you need me, but we need you.
I definitely could say I needed you and everyone else that is in the group that has, you know, that I've learned something from or that have just shared, you know, growing up. So number one, you know, being 7, I was in 2nd grade. I was the only one that I knew with type 1. Everyone in my family, everyone else had type 2. And unfortunately, I had this negative thought process of having type 1. And it was, dang, man, like everybody has type 2 diabetes. They were diagnosed at the age of 30, but then they were dead by the age of 50. Like, not even some of my family members didn't even make 20 years living with. So when I got diagnosed with type 1, I had a negative thought process about it. That what does that mean for me? Does that mean I'm going to be gone by the time I'm 30 years old? Does that mean, like, what does that mean for me? And so I know, I had to try to take care of myself as best as I knew. I didn't have support. Like, my mom was a single mother. She also was a young mother. And she never really genuinely learned type 1 diabetes because she was in survival mode herself. And I can understand that. Like, now that I'm grown and I'm healed, and forgiveness has been a huge part of my healing journey, I understand that it wasn't her fault per se. She just was surviving herself. And as a single mother herself, and of having 3 girls by the time she was 21 years old, like, she just had to keep it going. She just kept it pushing. And so a lot of my diabetes and the management was just me. I think back a lot, and just the lack of, like we said, the education behind it. I remember them probably teaching my mother how to give an insulin shot, how to drop the insulin and give a shot, I think, to an orange is what they used. And I remember being only 2 days in the hospital. And because it was so sudden, like my diagnosis, I remember, the constant urination, the frequent thirst, having an infection that was just really, really bad, going to my pediatrician, them diagnosing me there, but telling me I had to go straight to the children's hospital, and warning my mom that I would be staying. But I spent that first night in the hospital by myself because my mom had to go back home and take care of the other kids, and there was nobody else she had. And so I think about those things and I'm like, dang, like, so again, forgiveness has been a part of my healing journey, and I don't fault her for it. But that was tough, and thinking about that and how important support is. And so finding a community, and yeah, now I'm a grown woman, but even now, just finding the community now, it's been helpful for me, and I'm so grateful.
Right. I hear about this often with people I record with about that. Especially when you're diagnosed younger, having to take on the great grasp of these responsibilities by yourself, and you're still developing at that young age. 7 years young, you were diagnosed 1996. That means that your mom probably comes from an era where she had to do a lot for herself, and she had, what you say, 3 young girls.
Yeah.
By the age of 21, that means that you equally, like, she was learning with you. You were learning with her. She was young. And I must applaud you on this, because this is a part of the healing journey that it takes people forever. Forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness. Most people outside of our box, our circle, don't truly understand what that means. Like, forgiveness wholeheartedly means to, again, accept that things that happened in your past were in your past. We learn and we live and we move forward, whether it happens in 10 years or 40 years. Once you're able to forgive, you're able to move forward.
Absolutely.
It's almost like it gives a sense of relief. Like, yeah, now I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had this conversation with my sister a couple weeks ago. She's 3 years older than me. And we were talking about just life in general, how time, to be born and to die, are the only inevitables. Like those are the things that will occur. So in between that time, we have to max it out, do everything we can to be our best, to leave our legacy, our legend, to share with others, and all of those things. If we're too much bottled in with hate, um, and we're not sharing our love, kindness, those types of things, then we truly can't be our best. Sometimes we got to put on our big boy and big girl pants. At 7 years young, you had to. I don't know how old you are today, but I know how old I am today. I'm sure I'm a bit older than you. But it sometimes some things of forgiveness took me 20 years, 30 years. And I mean, I'm in a week, less than 2 weeks, I'll be 42 years young. I say 42 years young because I still got a life to live. And there's still things every day that I'm forgiving people about, things that just flash through your mind. And with us living with a chronic health condition, such as type 1 diabetes, we know we have to relieve that stress.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's huge right there. And that's what, again, so, you know, I've always had a pretty good relationship with my mother, but I was triggered. Like when I was triggered, you know, and part of, like you said, you know, living with the chronic illness, that chronic stress ain't it. You know what I mean? Like it is not it for us. And in my 20s, I was sick. I mean, I was sick all my life. So, you know, again, I love my mother. I forgive my mother. But, you know, another thing that, you know, because traumas, right? So there's the ACE score, and I have a high number in my ACE score. And I used to feel like I was reaping the karma of what my parents did and how they chose to live. And I was always such a genuine, good-hearted person and always helpful. So when I would face all these challenges, it's like, dang, like it ain't even my fault. I'm not even the one. I don't even deserve all of this. I'm not even the one that did X, Y, and Z, but yet I'm reaping it. And so having to let go of that and not being the victim, right? Because I mean, there's definitely reasons. And I say that to this day. So I say be better, not bitter a lot, but also is we all have reasons for why things happen or why we do things or how we turn out, but we can't use it as an excuse. And that's something I had to learn is, yes, this happened, that happened, but we can't use that as an excuse. We have to problem solve and move forward and figure out a way. So in my, all my life, I was very sick. I mean, even before the diabetes, I had a couple of different surgeries. Unfortunately, there was, addiction very close in my life as far as, in my household and things like that. So we didn't have the money. We didn't have just all these things that come with living in poverty, having addiction, my mother being a young mother, all of these things. And so I had these layers and layers that I had to heal from, just layers. And again, having to forgive because I had to let go of, yes, I'm not the one that actively was addicted, or I'm not the one that chose to be in poverty, or I'm not the one that, didn't cook myself a home cooked meal every day, or whatever the case was, but understanding the why, her reasons why, and taking the good away from it, right? So like I mentioned, I was very, very sick pretty much all my life. And then I had gotten hurt from work, and that just kind of tipped it over. I always was very resilient. and always got through everything. But when I got hurt at work, I think that really, it really just put me down. And it was more so like because these medical providers weren't listening to me. They were making me feel as if I was, exaggerating the pains that I felt every day, everything that I was going through every day. They would make it as if I was making it up almost.
Right. I want to tap into that. I made a note right here at work, but before we get into that, I wanted to speak more about that trauma, the adverse childhood experiences, the ACE score for people who don't know. It's about specifically traumatic events that have occurred in a child's life from age 0 to 17. And these adverse childhood experiences, many believe, and it has shown that it does significantly aid in children developing sicknesses, mental, emotional, psychological, behavioral disorders, all of these things just because of an experience that occurred. And it may not be an experience that you even remember. There's many things that could just trigger that. And again, being diagnosed at 7 years young, and then 20 odd years later, you're still the only one really who's taking care of this diagnosis. Not only chronic health is physical, but it's also mentally and emotionally.
Absolutely.
And that came along because I hear it in your conversation when you speak of like different things that have occurred. And then you bring in speaking about the medical team, like you just mentioned about work. And then you were like, and the medical providers, trauma, white coat syndrome, it all comes bottled in the same beverage that's about to explode if you shake it up.
To this day, I still get high blood pressure when I go to the doctors. To this day, they have to recheck it after I'm already settled in for a while because, as a kid, I used to get in trouble for my diabetes with my diabetes team, and it was as if it was my fault, as if, and so advocacy is so huge with me now because of things like this. So me getting in trouble at these diabetes appointments and my mother lacking the accountability and the fact that she's the one who goes grocery shopping. I wasn't buying my own food. I was literally eating whatever was available or just trying to stay alive, but I had no control over what was coming into the household. But yeah, I'm getting yelled at and nobody's, teaching me what to do different or even helping me. There was no adult really right there to, so yeah, definitely that white coat syndrome and just, even though now my diabetes is way much better, my A1C is way more down than it was, it's like, it just is in me. And, but yeah, and just taking it back to the fact that being a child, right, and having to take care of my own diabetes, my mom being in survival mode, there was a time that she was sober. There was a period of life where she was sober, but she was working all the time. But I recall that I was in fourth grade. I was 9 years old, and I pretty much almost killed myself without knowing I was killing myself because I didn't know the severity of diabetes. I did not know what type 1 diabetes was. I only knew of what everybody else had, which was type 2. And so I'm just correlating it with that. I didn't know that if I wasn't taking my insulin, that I could, end up in DKA and potentially die. And so,
Maria, again, I've had so many of these conversations that I already had in my mind that you were going to speak about this because in 7, 9, 30, like it's no true difference because Maria, I must let you know right now, none of this is at your own fault. The education, the resource, the guidance, the support, all of those things should have been handed down to you when you were diagnosed. Not only you, there should have been a room, a community that came around and covered you, embraced you, and said, baby girl, I'm speaking to you, Maria, baby girl, we got you. We're going to protect you the same way we will protect you as a newborn. The same way we will guide you when you need help in school, when you're trying to go on to secondary education. All of those things, those resources that are available today, they should have been available for you. If something happened within your household where someone got neglected, harmed, whatever, you would have CPS knocking at the door. Mm-hmm. You were a child with a chronic health condition. There should have always been someone there. Absolutely. I'm not putting the fault on just on your household. This is a community thing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, which is why I give my mom the grace and forgiveness, because I know it was beyond her. I know it was beyond her. The resources were not there. You just mentioned school, and, if I needed help, and I never even had a 504. I didn't even learn about a 504 until I was a grown adult going to nursing school, and they're questioning why I didn't have a 504. And so, yeah, I didn't have any of those things. And so, again, wanting to be a normal kid, because I remember the summers having to stop going swimming at the public pool to get out, go check my blood, and have a snack. I was tired of all those things. And also then just got to a point where nobody was checking over me. I would pretend I was checking my blood, and I wasn't really checking my blood. I was making up numbers. I'm writing all these numbers in the log book, and there's probably one actual log in my meter within the last 5 days. And nobody knew until I went to the endo 3 months later, and they're like, you got 5 readings for the whole last 3 months. And they're the ones who called me out on my lying. But again, all they could say, it was more of a fear factor after that. It was like, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing to myself. It was like, you could die, your A1C is like, it was probably 13, I think, if I remember correctly. It was like 13. You could end up in the hospital. And honestly, I never did. I never ended up in the hospital for a duration of time. I've never been actually diagnosed with diabetes, ketoacidosis, even though I went through that. It was probably almost a whole year of me making up numbers and barely taking insulin. You could see it in my weight. You could see how pale I was. You could see how much I was going to the bathroom and how thirsty I was. But nobody picked up on it until I was called out and, things like that.
Right. Many people probably were like, oh, that's just her diabetes.
Yeah. Or just not even, paying attention at all, really, because I don't think anybody around me really knew what diabetes could do. My mother did it. My father didn't. And at this time, I was the only type 1. So, after that incident, going into 5th grade, the Children's Hospital, they did end up giving me a scholarship to a camp, to Barton in Massachusetts, Claire Barton camp. So that's when I had the opportunity, and that's the most education that I had ever gotten, was a week away for a scholarship, and it was an all girls, diabetes camp. So that's when I learned about, eating correctly and getting some exercise in. But again, I'm still a child, so I just was taking it in for what it was, which was a fun time out from anything I knew back home. You know what I mean? Back home, I'm going to the park around the corner with a whole bunch of kids acting a fool, but over here I'm at a campfire. Like, what is that? And I'm going swimming all the time, and I'm doing yoga, and so that was all foreign stuff to me, but I had that opportunity thanks to a scholarship. And so I was able to learn a little bit and really understand the severity of diabetes and things like that. So yeah, so that was that. And then that year, actually, so I was 10, my sister ended up getting diagnosed. She's 3 years younger than me. And at the age of 7 for her, she ended up getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
So your mother has two children with type 1 diabetes.
Yep.
Your sister is 3 years younger than you?
Yes, 3 years younger.
So she was diagnosed at the same age you were diagnosed.
Yep.
Lucky 7.
Yep.
Let me write that down for a title.
And then I have a sister that she's a half sister. We have the same father only, but she grew up in Puerto Rico, and she then was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I want to say a year or two after my other sister. So,
and what's that age gap?
They're a year and a half apart. So my sister from Puerto Rico, she was turning 7 as well. I think she was turning 7. Wow. I don't know if she was 7 already. Yep.
Well, the luck of the 7. Or should we say here, the unluck of the 7?
I know, the unluck, right?
And this tells me that diabetes, type 1 diabetes specifically, is prevalent on your father's side.
That's what I'm thinking. But I still don't know anybody else who has it. But then I do know that we do have a huge family. My grandmother had a lot of siblings, and we're all over the place. So, there might be someone else with it that I don't know.
Have you ever done like ancestry DNA?
Or not me personally, no. My older sister did, but she doesn't have any health problems, but she has done the ancestry. And I know that like a couple years ago, we ended up finding some family members on social media and stuff. But as far as type 1 diabetes, I haven't gotten to the bottom of that.
Yeah, for me, it's I did it with me and my younger brother did a deep dive into our ancestry a few years ago, and that's how I was able to find out that my great grandmother had passed from type 1 diabetes in 1954. But when we went through that whole like ancestry.com, looking at her family history and stuff, like you're able to actually pull up death certificates.
Oh.
And that's how we found out like about my great grandmother, because it said death due to acidosis, and then it had a full breakdown of it. Like it was actually her diagnosis story and her death story at the same time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't know. I've never done it, and I didn't know that you could get, how deep it goes. But that's interesting. My grandmother right now, my dad's mother, she has dementia. So I wouldn't be able to get too many things out of her right now.
You're talking about your grandmother having dementia today. Did you know that there's been direct connections between dementia and Alzheimer's and diabetes?
I feel like I've heard some stuff, but I haven't like gone too deep into the research or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, like they consider Alzheimer's, I think, type 4 diabetes. Where are you from? What's your area?
So I'm in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
My mom was born in Puerto Rico. My dad is he's African American. They're from Alabama. So yeah, I'm not, 1,000% sure, but I do know that we do have a big family. I do still have family members there in Alabama, but again, with many of them being in the military, we ended up kind of everywhere. So I do have family everywhere. I learned that I have some Japanese family members, some white family members. So just, we all, just a whole bunch of us all over the place. But yeah.
I'm huge into research, and when you just said Japanese, that also sparked something because she mentioned the same thing. But moving forward with family, who did you actually grow up with?
So Both my parents, they both were in my life. And so I know like all my dad's siblings are around, and I am very close with some of my first cousins and things like that. But I grew up in the household with my mother, and my mother had 4 children. So 3 of us with my dad, and then one she ended up having 10 years after me, with a different man. But again, my dad was around, and I did see him often growing up.
I asked that just because you were diagnosed at 7. Your sister was diagnosed at 7, and you two were in the same household at 10 and 7. I just wanted to know, like, when you were diagnosed at that young age, do you recall, like, initially, like, when you went back to school and your friends, peers, teachers, how they responded or reacted to it?
Yeah, so I do remember my second grade teacher. She was lovely. I will never forget her, because even though she didn't know about, type 1 diabetes, I believe in my elementary school, I was the only one in my elementary school until my sister was diagnosed. So then she became the second one in the elementary school.
Mhm.
But my second grade teacher, I remember her being very concerned and just trying to, make sure I was okay. We used to do like this little bingo on Fridays. And so I remember her buying specifically sugar-free candies for me just so that I wouldn't feel left out. And like I said, too, is my mom, she was always working and stuff. So I even remember this specific second grade teacher. I was interested in a after school program, and she volunteered her time to actually take me. And so I will never forget her, because she did that for me. And but as far as the kids in second grade, they didn't really know, and they didn't really treat me any different at that time. But I do know that not many teachers tried to really understand diabetes, because I know once I got to middle school, it was difficult. I mean,
Right.
it was difficult because I would have headaches all the time because I had other things go. I did suffer from migraines, and then the stress of whatever was going on at home, and carrying the weight of my home life plus the diabetes. I would miss a lot of school. I would not feel well often, and me still living up to the same standards, and the teachers not being caring, because again, I didn't have a 504. So what I recall about like school and stuff was I used to get points taken off of my assignments when I handed them in late, and them having no grace on me, like literally no care in the world about the why. Going to school late or leaving early. And I remember in my middle school years, them asking my mom to basically pull me out of school and just homeschool me because I was missing so much school. But why didn't anybody ever mention a 504? Why was that not advocated for me? Why was the solution to pull me out? And
Right. What years was this in the 90s?
yeah, so 99, so
Oh, because
98, 99.
you were diagnosed 96. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so like 99, 2000, I was in middle school. And I just remember struggling and them not the caring. I know now because prior to this position, so I worked in the school system as a tutor. And that's when I started to really advocate more for others, is because also there was a child diagnosed. She was in 4th grade. I was a tutor there, and me being asked to pretty much help her with the, accepting it and just talking to her and stuff. And I remember her not doing well on a test, and me automatically saying, well, and advocating for her, like, well, her sugar may have been high and may have been low during the standardized tests. Those affect us, and there's so many teachers and so many people in general that just don't know this, how it affects us from one minute to another, you know, how, because people know about the type 2, right? So they don't understand how we can get up to 400 if we're not, you know, mindful, or if we don't have a CGM, or if we don't see it coming or whatever, but how we also then could be 60, you know what I mean? They don't get that. And they think, a lot of people think that, you know, diabetes, type 1 diabetes is like black and white. And there's so many things that are not black and white, but really type 1 diabetes is really, really not black and white. And it's like, sometimes, how do we even explain it and stuff like that? It's, yeah. So I really started to advocate within the last couple of years, really advocate after learning how to advocate for myself, because growing up, I didn't really have that voice, especially growing up in the household or, you know, just a Hispanic household. And kind of, it's like, you listen, you don't really have that much voice. They like that control factor a little bit, and that's just what it is. And so it's like, you do as you're told, you know, and you don't really have a voice. So it took me a long time to find my voice and to really then stick up for myself and really put to words and feel comfortable enough to even speak out loud. But so, you know, in school and stuff like that, when I was in school, I definitely was afraid to speak up, and I didn't always have the words to describe what I was feeling or what I was going through.
Do you even recall when you were in school? Do you even recall, like, did you give insulin while you were in school?
So during that time where I was saying how I was really, my A1C was like 18, like 13 and stuff, I ended up having to, for a small period of time, I was on injections. And for a small period of time, having insulin prescribed at school. But for the most part, I wasn't given lunch insulin. It was just, from my recollection, the twice a day. Like, I remember being diagnosed, and I was on the
Was it 70/30?
No, I was when I first was diagnosed, the Humulin NPH and the
NPH, yeah,
Humalog.
that's 70/30 insulin. It's a mix of regular and human NPH.
Oh, well, I remember mixing 2 vials. I remember drawing my N and then drawing my Humalog into the same syringe.
Okay.
It was later on that I ended up on a 70/30 pen.
Okay.
So it was a little bit different when I first
NPH and regular.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was upon first diagnosis, and then eventually I changed. And then I remember going through some trials on what would work best for me. And then, but yeah, I don't recall giving myself insulin at lunch too much. Every day I did go down to check my blood sugar. I remember some lows. I remember, you know, other students getting jealous because I had a snack in class, or I'm going to lunch and I have a juice box because, you know, before lunch I checked my blood and it's on the low side, so I get a juice box and then head to lunch, or whatever. So I do remember those types of little like comments and people not really understanding the why. I do remember or going on a field trip, and, you know, in middle school, this is when you start liking boys and boys start liking you. And I remember having a crush, but then him seeing me check my blood on the field trip and him then changing his whole, you know, crush on me because he, like, if I was contagious or something.
Right. Kids back then,
Yeah.
they thought it was like a disease or something that they can contract, or, I mean, especially when you think of like the 90s, early 2000s, all of that, like there were some big like epidemics going on and around.
And unfortunately, even in my adult life, I've encountered some people in the dating world that literally doesn't know. It's like, it's, they think of diabetes again and they're like, oh, well, my aunt has diabetes and she just, checks her blood every couple of days and takes a pill.
Right.
And they see my insulin pump and they're like, oh, wait, like, oh, what's that? Or, like
Yeah.
if it's something, and I'm like, and I'm very transparent about my diabetes. I never, in all my life, even though I had my ups and downs and stuff like that, and lack of education behind it, I still managed to not, like I've been as low as probably in the 20s, probably like 23, still standing, not, not passing out, not going into a seizure, still standing and being able to correct it on my own, just as well as I've been as high as where the meter's just saying hi, and being able to bring myself down without having to take a hospital trip, and never was diagnosed with DKA. So again, I've had my ups and downs, but I'm very grateful because what I did know was I want to live, I want to stay alive, so I'm gonna figure this out with whatever I got.
Right. There's so many things that are misunderstood about you, me, and diabetes, and that truly does affect us as we're growing up, maturing. Things like you said, relationships, whether it's friendships or significant others, employment, school, all of those things. Like diabetes truly does play a role in all of those things. And again, like you said, like people on the outside, they have zero clue what's going on inside here. It could be even like your closest road dog, like your best friend, can be around you all day, every day, and they still don't know.
Yep.
They still don't know. And unless you're a person living with it or the caregiver of someone who's living with it, you really don't get a true grasp of what it is living with type 1 diabetes, because there is no break. There is no pause. As me and you, Maria, are sitting here having this conversation, our diabetes is still going on. And that's something that everyone needs to know. Like, it never ends. It's not about food. It's not. Food is a variable to diabetes, as sleep is, as exercise is, as all types of nutrition and activity are, hormonal things such as adrenaline, menstrual cycles, those things. Those are the things that we're not gifted when we're diagnosed. Our parents aren't even share this information when we're diagnosed. These are things that we just got to learn along the journey. And if we were prepared for these before we actually embarked on this long struggle of a trip, then it would be so much more simplified, so much more at ease. But again, we're not gifted this. When, as a young child in second grade, if you were to be like needing help with an assignment in school, a teacher would come over to you. Hey, Maria, are you not understanding how we're doing these multiplication problems? When you going into middle school, do you need more assistance with this geometry or algebra, things of that nature? There was no one but you. And that's a near impossible feat for a child to manage physical health, mental health, and well-being. The nuances of diabetes, the calculations, the sciences behind that. But you did it. You did it. And you're still doing it. Like you said, no complications. You've learned how to figure out what to do when when you're low, when you're high, without risk of being hospitalized. I mean, that's always in the background, but you haven't had to have been because of diabetes. You've taken full control of it. And that's another reason why I have this platform, because we all deserve that honor, that respect, that just like celebration for keeping ourselves alive since we were kids. We were babies. Like, imagine a 7-year old being given an infant and saying, you got to take care of this baby every single day. And that baby never ever grows up. That's diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
It never grows up. You might get better, better formulas, even soak-proof diapers, things of that nature, as technology advances. But it's still the same diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely, like I said, I'm so, what you're doing and the fact that you're shedding this light, because it's so hard to explain, and we get tired of trying to explain. And then there's some people that just honestly, they're never going to get it, even if we turn blue in the face, and sometimes people don't care to get it. I have a coworker now who she has asked questions, and she apologized. I said, I don't apologize. I love that you're asking questions. I love that you care to know. Do you know how many people in my direct life don't even care to know? And here you are caring to know. I said, don't ask me all the questions in the world. Like, please ask me all the questions in the world, because that shows me something, and I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. So, even, I always was stuck in, do I have a disability, right? It's like, I've never had the 504 going through school. Even in jobs, I didn't have like the ADA accommodations. This last job I had basically told me to fill out the ADA paperwork. And I was so confused, and I was a little bit like, I felt a little bit of type of way, because I felt like, other people have issues here, heart, whether it's a heart problem and I'm like, they're not being forced to fill this out, but why am I being forced to fill this out? But then it was also like, how do we fill it out? It's not black and white. And the questions on that form were like frequency and, and we don't know when our sugar is going to go low, when it's going to affect us, how long it's going to affect us. Because, I mean, I'm sure you could relate where if we have a low and our sugar is corrected, so now we hit 120, but the residual of how we feel is still there. So are we supposed to get right back to work? Our blood sugar is there, but we can't even focus yet still. How do we explain these things on paper for then someone else to say, yeah, you're approved for these accommodations, or you're not approved for these accommodations? It's really, it's messed up. And, so I have a 16-year-old. I'm only 36. I have a 16-year-old. And the reason why I have a 16-year-old is because before Obama came into office, and the fact that pre-existing health conditions, they were allowed to deny us, insurance companies, they don't want to pay the money that we are going to cost them. And so I was a liability. We are liabilities to the insurance companies. And I was just getting closed doors. And I was coming of age. I'm in college full time. I'm trying to beat the odds. I'm coming from poverty. I'm coming from an imprisoned parent, I had a parent that was in prison, had addiction, all these things that were in my immediate surroundings. And I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to go on a different path. I'm trying to be great. And then I'm faced with no insurance. And so it's like, what the hell do I do? And these insurance companies just kept denying me, and I didn't qualify for state. And then I went to my job, and I'm like, can you guys give me a full-time position? Nope, because they felt the same way. I was a liability. So I ended up getting pregnant. And, I tell my son all the time, like, you saved me. You literally, I'm here today because of you. But it's so sad. It's just so sad that that had to be. Like, I always knew I wanted children. Did I want to be pregnant at 19? Did I want to like not be able to juggle living, school, being a parent? Like, it was hard. And so, like you said, diabetes is like having an infant that never grows up. And now I'm 19, caring for an actual infant and dealing with my diabetes. I remember when that happened, before I even got hit with the actual not having the insurance, I remember trying to go to my doctors asking for solutions, what can happen. The best that they could do for me was give me some samples of insulin. So for a couple of months, I was pretty much just living off of what I could live off of, trying to stretch out that insulin and just survive. Until then, I got pregnant. So then when I got pregnant, I had an endo, and I remember her, again, the fear factor, telling me my kid's going to be disabled, telling me my kid's going to come out with this, that my kid's going to die because my diabetes wasn't in control. Without her remembering the fact that I literally went a duration of time without insurance. I literally am just surviving. And I don't need you to be telling me my kid's going to come out with all these messed up problems to scare me into doing better. Why don't you help me do better? Why don't you guide me to what I can do better? And she didn't, she was a horrible doctor, a horrible provider. She would make me cry. And I'm like, and that's what I was faced with for so long, until I finally found my voice and finally, started demanding the care that I deserve, the care that we all deserve. Finding the right providers, changing my doctor, until someone heard me, until someone was willing to listen. But yeah, my son is 16 now, and, I take so much pride as a mom because I did that. Like,
You did.
Not only was I 19, having this baby, but then I've made so many changes since then. And I just keep going. Like, yeah, maybe, at this point I don't have, this high degree and whatever, but my kids, they don't need for nothing. I mean, they're my reasons. When I was pregnant with my last son, he just turned 7. And at this point, I was on the insulin pump finally. And you know how many doctors I came across that don't even know what an insulin pump is? Don't know how to use an insulin pump. I gave birth to him, and I was in the hospital giving my own dosages, doing my own thing, and they just had me filling out a log, basically, for me to fill out what I was doing for myself. They didn't touch my diabetes not one bit because they didn't even know how to work my pump. Which leads me to then, having the surgery a couple of months ago, and my surgeon needing notes from the endo team, and the endo team not really giving them anything. And that was scary for me because I've learned to advocate for myself, but now I'm like, I'm about to go under. I'm going to literally be out of it. Who's going to make sure I'm okay when I'm out of it? Who is going to have me like I have me? And there's nobody. Like, that's how I feel, at least, is that there's literally nobody that's going to take care of me the way I take care of me, or even care to take care of me the way I take care of me. And that's what my experiences have been with providers, the medical team, and it's unfortunate.
Right. And it makes you think, like, as you age and get older, who's going to take care of you? And that's a big reason why they're developing more of the AID systems, the automatic insulin delivery systems, and the algorithm based, because it means that the medical teams have to do less, really, less hands-on approach. Even though truly, when we are hospitalized for any reason, whether it's surgery or for any kind of ailment, sickness, the medical teams still don't know much about type 1 diabetes at all. At all. And it doesn't matter if you're far up north as Connecticut or if you're deep down south somewhere, Alabama, Arkansas. I've come across the same situations with people. And how do you become your own advocate when you're in a hospital setting? That's a question that people ask all the time. They're like, this is supposed to be the trusted place, the trusted environment. They're supposed to have my back. I'm here for a reason. They should have done all the intake information and should have set someone up to make sure my blood sugar is regulated during these times. But it's like impossible to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Who knows? There has to be one person available.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I worked in healthcare. That's where I started. And, I realized, there's so many different things. And what I've come to realize in my whole journey and just all the things I've been through is that we're all people, right? Because I used to literally put my all trust into medical providers until they was doing me no good, until they literally just kept prescribing me stuff. Like in my 20s, I was on different medications between, treating anxiety, depression, or oh, well, Maria, because you're type 1 diabetic, we should protect your kidneys. So take this statin or take, so I'm on blood pressure meds, cholesterol meds, anxiety, depression, all these different meds, nerve meds, because of all the pain that I was in. And nobody was trying to fix me. Like nobody was trying to get to the root. Nobody was trying to give me an actual diagnosis. It was nothing but medications. And then, so that's how I spent my 20s, stuck, depressed, and on a host of medications. And then, something happened in my life where I woke up. And that's when I realized, like, something's got to give. This can't be. When I say, how I mentioned how growing up, I thought maybe I won't make it till I'm 30 because of everybody else in my family. They had amputations, they had kidney failure, was on dialysis, heart attacks, all these things that made them go along with the diabetes. But now here I am living in my 20s, sick, like endoscopy, colonoscopy. I remember a study because I was sick to my stomach all the time. Every day I'm throwing up. I'm in pain. I'm this, I'm that. And I had to eat this like radioactive food to see where in my system it was because they thought I had gastroparesis. And it was just nonstop sick. And so now my thought about me dying at an early age was it was like becoming reality.
It was almost a certain.
Yes. And I was just like, but I haven't done everything in life. I haven't even accomplished anything really. And I had to figure it out. And so I had miscarried a child, but that baby is what made me to stop all the medications. Getting pregnant, even though it ended up being too late, I used that miscarriage as the new beginning. That was my journey to where I am today.
Your babies have literally saved your life.
They have.
As they mature, you have a 16-year-old right now. I have a 16-year-old also. As he matures into this young adulthood, I do these segments, these recordings, so that people can easily share these with those who love them most, because it provides information, like you said, that is almost impossible to explain and then explain again and explain again. So with just a provided link, you just share it with them. And they're like, and your boys are going to smile because they see the resilience of their mother, who was diagnosed at a young age of 7. And they see that nothing stopped her from being her best. And her best is being their mother.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing stopped you from being who you were destined to be.
Yeah.
Diabetes, I never give it a plus or positive. I never do, because I know without diabetes how much more we'd be able to do. But at the same time, without diabetes, you wouldn't have been able to truly engage and understand your own body and your own well-being, so you could be your best for them.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I agree. And my kids literally, and that's why I started in the beginning of this recording is they're my reasons. Like, him saving me at 19 and then that miscarriage is what got me to detox from the meds, get off the meds and choose to not go back on them. That's when I started to figure out natural ways to go about things. How can I, support this? Because as diabetics, our bodies are already doing all this extra work, right? Like we already have a faulty system. And so now when we add in medications, different meds, now our body is a little more confused and doesn't know really what to do, and it's working harder. And so, yeah, I ended up finding the more natural way. So now I'm really big on the holistic health. At this point in my life, I only take insulin. I don't have to take any other prescribed medications. I feel the best that I've ever felt in my life in my 30s. My career, everything is just looking up, and I know
everything's taken off.
Yes, and God, I know that I've gone through all these tests because that's my testimony. Like, absolutely. So
You keep trying to give me different titles, but I'm sticking to Lucky Sevens. But I think our recording is winding down. I think we're done at 2 p.m.
Okay.
But I did want to ask you before we get off of here, because I know that diabetes has been impactful to your everyday existence. A question that I do ask everyone at the end is, on the day, Maria, because you were diagnosed in 1996 at 7 years young, on the day a functional cure is available for you, for all of us, and you get a call, and I say, Maria, everyone in the group has been texting me saying that their diabetes isn't working today, that they're fully cured, and you wake up, you step on the floor, and you're like, my blood sugar's not rising at all. I'm cured also, Will. On that day, Maria, you find out that you've been fully cured from type 1 diabetes. What do you do?
I think the first thing I'm going to do is definitely cry. I mean, like you said, it has impacted every part of our life, every part. And I mean, I'm definitely going to cry. And then I'm just going to take off. I feel like, take it in, but then take off. Because if we're able to accomplish what we accomplish with the diabetes, imagine what it would be like without it, and because we've lived it, we're not going to take anything for granted. We don't take nothing for granted. Like everything, we see a lesson in everything. It turns into a blessing. And so it's definitely going to be takeoff time. It's going to be savor the moment and just go hard.
Look, and let me know, because we all packing our bags with no supplies.
Right? Oh.
Look, all the money we're going to save. Look, just enjoying life, because it reminds me of, like, I host these local meetups. And when we're at these meetups, like, I smile, we cry, because it's like we're truly being unapologetically type 1 diabetics there. Like, we all get it. We all understand it in the moment, the conversations. Just think about those conversations we'll be able to have without diabetes, just being like, let's just fly away.
Yeah, I just went to Portugal and Spain this year with my son. It was just me and my son. And the amount of extra stuff I took, right? And this is the most I've traveled in all my life, but that was a fear for me, is
Right.
traveling with the diabetes, right? But all the extra stuff we have to think about, the emergency bag that I carry, the everything, right? And so, yeah, we're gonna pack our bags with bare minimum and take off and be fine. We're gonna be
We
fine.
will. We're going to take off and we're going to be fine. And Maria, with that, I truly thank you for joining me on the Chronically Will podcast, where we have real conversations with community that needs to be heard. Because Maria, you are truly someone that needs to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take off.
Thank you, Will.
All right.